It was spent on legitimate things. Don't worry, but we don't know what we spent it on.
Well, I mean, how do you know? Obviously, one cannot say it was spent legitimately if they don't know what it was spent on. That doesn't make any sense.
This is such a fascinating time because with this setup, the way it is right now, with Trump back in after all that happened to him, and with you there, and with RFK Jr. and Tulsi and Kash Patel, it's like this is a wild time. To find out what's really going on. That's like never happened before. This is nothing like the first term.
No.
Like the first term, he had a bunch of neocons in the cabinet, and there's a bunch of shady people that he didn't know, and he had to appoint all these different people, and maybe he got some bad picks. Now he's had 4 years to stew on it.
Right.
And with you guys all going through this, we're getting an understanding of the government that we've literally never had before.
Yeah, this is a revolutionary cabinet. And maybe the most revolutionary cabinet since the first revolution. This is not a bunch of business as usual types. So this is why some of the Senate confirmations were quite challenging, is because when you try to appoint people who are going to change the system, the system doesn't want to let them through.
But it's fascinating because it's like the vampires all out themselves. Like now everybody knows who the system is. Like if you're just lying openly about U.S. aid and then they come and hear you talk on a podcast and explain what's really going on, like he's starving mothers. There's mothers that can't get food.
Totally false.
That's all you're hearing.
Yeah.
That's no one's talking in any of these mainstream liberal talk shows. No one is talking about all this fraud and waste.
Yeah, because we're cutting off their graft machine. So that's what they're upset about. That's the real thing they're upset about. And if people want to know what Doge is cutting, and I want to be clear, like these are cuts that Doge recommends to the department, and usually these recommendations are followed, but these are recommendations that are then confirmed by the department. You can see line by line what Doge has done at doge.gov. So whatever we do, we put on doge.gov so you can see everything that is being done.
And there's a tracker that shows how much money has been saved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can look at each line item, and like a bunch of these sort of far left shows will say like, oh, it's a constitutional crisis, blah, blah, blah. But what they won't do is point out which payments are wrong.
Right.
So my challenge to them is point out which payments are wrong.
Yeah, go through it.
Which of these sort of waste/fraud things are wrong? Which line? Explain that line to the public. They won't be able to.
Right. Yeah, that's why you're not hearing any specifics. You're hearing anecdotal stories about mothers starving.
But we can name the specifics.
Yeah.
Line by line.
And
we got the receipts.
And here's the other thing. If you're
post the receipts.
And if you're only talking about the propaganda talking points and you're not talking about the very clear fraud and waste, it's very obvious what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just gaslighting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So exactly, because we're saying, like, look, in fact, I've said we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. So if we make a mistake, we'll quickly fix it. So we'll we need to act fast. So stop wasting billions of dollars of taxpayer money. But if we make a mistake, we'll reverse it quickly.
Right.
So.
It's also this interesting narrative that you shouldn't have access to this Social Security information, as if no one's had access to it before, as if the Biden administration in 2023 there was like 53 people, some of them were students, that had access to all this stuff.
Yeah. As it is, there are tens of thousands of federal employees that have access already to the system. Anyone from Doge has to go through the same vetting process that those federal employees went through. So it's not like some unvetted random situation. If, for example, there's a security clearance needed, the Doge person has to have that same security clearance. So there's no reduction in security. But I mean, obviously the vast numbers of Social Security numbers have leaked onto the internet. People have hacked the government systems multiple times. Vast amounts of public information has been hacked and dumped onto the internet. So, I mean, there's a guy at the IRS that leaked 500,000 tax returns just a few years ago.
On purpose?
Yeah.
For what reason?
For political, he wanted to. I think he was trying to get at Trump and maybe me and a few others. But he stole like 500,000 tax returns. Yeah, like not a few, like it's a lot of tax returns.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that story. Now I
Yeah, you
remember
can just
it. Yeah.
you just read about it online. It's a real thing.
So these are the narratives. That's the narrative that you shouldn't have access to Social Security. The other narrative is that starving people are going to die and women aren't going to be pregnant and not have nutrients for their babies, and that's all you're hearing. And
Yeah, well, that's the only thing they can say, but they can't point to the line item.
right.
And so they can't say like, well, this is the thing where, the nutrients for pregnant mothers were stopped. They can't point to that because we didn't.
Right.
Is a lie.
What's fascinating to me is how much the mainstream media is in line with the very specific talking points, and how little you'll have Fox News. You essentially have Fox News on television. It's
Right.
like the only one that is pointing out the ridiculous fraud and waste. And
Yeah.
I know you saw the Jeff Bezos thing in the Washington Post. They're going to stop all the wacky editorials and limit that stuff to, I think it was wealth and personal freedom or something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's kind of, I think it makes sense because he's just talking about the things, not the sort of, he's just talking about the opinions.
Opinion pieces.
The opinion
yeah.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the regular journalism stays the same. So.
Well, it's a detriment to their business. I mean, you're seeing over and over again people that they don't want to hear all this shit from these people anymore. It's like you're saying, it's almost like you're caught in an outdated version of the virus, and everybody else already has the immunity to that virus. Like this is, like you need a new mind virus. The one that you're pushing, it's like it doesn't work anymore. It's too crazy.
Yeah. The whole thing's very crazy. The media is incredibly partisan. I mean, they're not. Almost all the media is, left shifted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird if you talk to somebody who gets all their information from like what I call legacy media. They're living in a different world.
Yeah.
Than if they say are listening to your podcast or getting news from X or just. If it's kind of wild. Like
It is very wild.
Like you talked, it's like they're living in an alternate reality.
Oh, there's a lot of people that I talk to that I have to go, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the Associated Press, which I call Associated Propaganda, the AP. They ran a international news story saying that DOJ fired air traffic controllers, but we didn't fire any air traffic controllers at all. In fact, we're trying to hire air traffic controllers, not fire them.
Yeah, I saw that. You made a tweet about it, right?
Yeah.
What do you call it now? Do you call it a post?
Post, yeah, whatever.
You can't call it a tweet, though. Do you call it a tweet
No,
accidentally
call it
ever?
post. I don't know. Listen to. But like if one, like let's say if somebody puts up like a 2-hour long video, that's not a tweet.
Right. It's a post.
It's yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but I'm not hard over if people still want to call it a tweet, whatever.
But you put a post about it, just to get back to it, saying that we need highly qualified air traffic controllers. If you've retired, if you would consider doing it again, we could use you. Yes.
So a lot of really qualified air traffic controllers were pushed out because of DEI stuff. So, not to be blunt, a bunch of really good, talented old white guys were pushed out. It's not cool. And so there's a talent shortage in air traffic control because of DEI and not hiring people on merit,
Which is so crazy that worked.
I think we should not put the public safety at risk.
No.
Because of some demented philosophy.